I still remember the exact moment everything in my life split in two, the before and the after, even though at the time it felt like just another small humiliation stacked on top of 100 others. It was a Tuesday afternoon, raining hard enough to blur the skyline, and I was standing in the lobby of a glass tower that technically belonged to my husband's family, even though no one there ever let me forget that I didn't really belong. That was the day his mother decided I was done. No warning, no discussion, just a cold smile and a sentence that sounded polite enough on the surface. "You should pack your things, dear. This arrangement has run its course." Yeah, that was how she ended my marriage, at least in her mind. I wish I could say I stood up for myself right then, said something sharp and unforgettable. But the truth is I just nodded, because when you've spent years being treated like a temporary inconvenience, you learn to survive by staying quiet. I was 6 months pregnant, my back hurt, my feet were swollen, and all I could think about was getting home and lying down. I didn't know yet that my husband Evan had already planned something far worse, something he thought was clever. He waited until our anniversary, 5 years married. He said he wanted to do things cleanly, but what he really wanted was to hurt me when I was already down. When he handed me the divorce papers, we were standing in the living room of the penthouse. He didn't even sit down, just held the envelope out like a receipt. He told me he was marrying his assistant Lily, and that she was better suited to the life he needed now. I remember staring at the city lights behind him and thinking how strange it was that the view looked exactly the same while my entire world was collapsing. I asked him one question, just one. "Did you ever love me?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Silence can be louder than shouting. You know what I mean? What made it almost funny in a dark, bitter way was that while he was explaining how I didn't fit into his future, he was packing for a honeymoon he'd already booked. Bags on the floor, expensive shirts folded neatly, the watch I gave him years ago tucked into a side pocket. He looked relieved, like he'd finally solved a problem. Lily was standing in the doorway, smiling, wearing a ring that caught the light just enough to make sure I noticed it. She thought she'd won. Everyone did. What none of them knew was that I had spent the last 3 years living a double life. To them, I was the quiet wife with the modest background, the one who didn't dress right for galas and didn't know how to talk to investors. But before I married Evan, before I ever set foot in that world, I had been building something of my own. I had money, real money, the kind that doesn't come with flashy headlines. I hid it on purpose. I wanted to know if someone could love me without it. Turns out that question has a very clear answer. After Evan left, the apartment felt too big and too quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed, one hand on my stomach, feeling my baby move, and I realized something important. I wasn't trapped anymore. They thought they'd broken me, but all they'd really done was remove the last reason I had to stay silent. I made a phone call that night, then another, the next morning. Lawyers, accountants, people who didn't underestimate me. 3 weeks later, I received a wedding invitation. Thick paper gold lettering and a handwritten note from Evan's mother that might as well have been a challenge. "I hope you can attend and see how things are meant to be done." She wanted me there. She wanted me humiliated in the public watching my replacement walk down the aisle. She had no idea she was inviting a storm. The real turning point came at a board meeting. Evan's family company was struggling quietly, the kind of struggling you hide behind confident smiles and optimistic projections. They were counting on a merger, one I happened to control through a holding company they didn't know was mine. I showed up late, pregnant calm, and sat at the table while they talked about numbers that only existed because I'd allowed them to. When I finally spoke, the room went still. I introduced myself properly this time. I watched recognition dawn on Evan's face, then fear. His mother tried to interrupt, but the lawyers didn't let her. Slide by slide. Laid it out. The loans, the patents, the support I'd been providing while being treated like dirt at family dinners. No insults, no raised voice, just facts. That's the thing about power. You don't have to announce it. It speaks for itself. By the end of the meeting, their empire was exposed for what it really was, fragile and dependent on someone they'd dismissed as insignificant. The wedding day arrived anyway. Pride is a powerful drug. The chapel was packed, society friends whispering, cameras ready. I walked in slowly, not because I was afraid, but because pregnancy changes how you move through the world. People stared. Some with pity, some with curiosity. Evan looked like he'd aged 10 years in a month. Lily avoided my eyes. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, I stood. The room gasped exactly like in the movies, and for a second I almost laughed at how predictable it all was. I didn't make a speech. I didn't insult anyone. I handed Lily an envelope and said, "You deserve to know what you're marrying into." Inside were the financial truths Evan had hidden from her. Debt, lawsuits, a future built on sand. She read silently, then looked at him. Really looked at him. And I saw the moment she realized the prize she thought she'd won was an illusion. She walked away. Just like that. Evan didn't chase her. He couldn't. He was staring at me like he was finally seeing who I'd always been. After the guests left, after the whispers turned into phone calls and headlines, Evan tried to talk to me. He apologized. He said he didn't know. I told him he knew enough. That was the truth. People don't miss red flags. They ignore them when it's convenient. I promised to support our child, to be fair, to be calm, but I didn't promise forgiveness. Some things don't deserve it. As I walked out of that chapel, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd won, but because I was done shrinking myself to fit into spaces that never wanted me. The funny thing is, they thought cruelty made them strong. All it really did was reveal how weak they were when the balance shifted. So here's my question for you. What would you have done? Stayed quiet to keep the peace, or waited, planned, and let the truth speak when it mattered most? Do you think revealing everything was justice, or did it cross a line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear them, especially if you've ever been underestimated, because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone else stopped paying attention to.